It's no surprise to anyone that the Volturi are absolutely terrifying. To be honest, for me, they're probably the best thing about Twilight, which is also a shame because there's no expanded lore on them. Instead, we're stuck with Bella and Edward. But anyway, we also know that you don't cross the Volturi by any means. If you do, you'll basically end up dead. They don't give second chances, as Jane likes to inform the lawbreakers. What makes the coven so strong, so powerful, is the fact that they are a tight-knit unit. Once you're in, that's it. There's no out. Kinda like the Mafia. It's for life, or, in vampire terms, all eternity. Every single Volturi member has a purpose and a place, and Arrow has spent the best part of 2,500 years carefully crafting a system that is not only highly successfully offensive but also basically impenetrable. It's true to state that some coven members are considered more important than others, like Jane and Alec for example, but as I just mentioned, everyone in the Volturi has a place. You cannot leave to pursue a new pasture. Just look at Marcus for example. He and his wife Didime, who was Arrow's real-life once-human sister, planned on leaving the Volturi to explore different parts of the world. They also planned on returning too. But Arrow falsely gave his blessing and then killed his own sister in secret in order to keep Marcus with the coven. For 20 years he assisted Marcus in trying to discover her killer, going to every length possible to show Marcus his support, when it was him all along. He'd done all of this just to keep Marcus, due to him valuing the latter's supernatural gift so highly. To lose Marcus would be to lose a Volturi strongpoint. And if Arrow was willing to kill his own sister, then it leaves very little to the imagination in terms of understanding that there is no leaving the Volturi. With that being said, these extreme measures didn't actually apply to everyone, and have managed to find 3 vampires who were granted permission to leave without consequence. Now the most notable vampire to escape Arrow's grasp was of course Carlisle Cullen. He spent a couple of decades in Volterra and was highly thought of by Arrow due to his kindness towards human life. The Volturi leader always found respect for individuals with uniqueness, even if it was Carlisle's compassion alone. He was fascinated with Carlisle's level of control and restraint, viewing it as useful, maybe somewhat useful, in terms of teaching other members of the Volturi to control their urges in instances or situations that required calmness. Don't forget, all Volturi fed on human blood. The urge to feed is so overwhelming for a vampire that they can lose sight of their task, an unnecessary distraction you could say, that may warrant the wrong kind of intention. Just ask Jasper when he tried to kill Bella in New Moon. Anyway, over time, Carlisle grew disillusioned with life in Volterra, especially as he was the only vampire adhering to the animal or vegetarian diet. He wanted to surround himself with like-minded vampires, but at the time had no intention of creating a coven of his own, and that was the only reason Arrow allowed him to leave in the first place. Had Arrow read Carlisle's mind and seen the intent to create such a coven, then I believe it would have spelled a completely different outcome for Carlisle. Arrow seen no loss of value by allowing Carlisle to leave. He appreciated what he tried to bring to the coven, but in the end, he wished Carlisle well. Caius, on the other hand, was slightly more skeptical and had the Volturi watch over Carlisle. And it's a good thing he did because, as we all know, Carlisle's creation of the Olympic Coven led to them becoming the Volturi's biggest threats. That was in Arrow's view, of course. We all know the Olympic Coven wanted nothing to do with taking over or mounting any sort of challenge on the vampire world, especially if it meant going against the Volturi. So that was Carlisle's Volturi departure. And actually, if you want more of an in-depth, detailed video on that topic, you can click the card at the end of the video. But anyway, let's move on. Next up, we're going to take a look at Eleazar and Carmen from the Denali Coven. Now, before meeting Carmen, Eleazar was a rather calm-natured vampire, and remained so even after he met her. However, despite such calmness, he was first-hand witness to the unstable atmosphere between vampires and humans, and he realized that there needed to be laws in place to protect the vampire race from exposing itself. Eleazar then offered his services to Arrow as a member of the Volturi Guard, and with his ability to detect the supernatural gift in any vampire, was gracefully welcomed to the fold. Arrow viewed his gift as quite useful due to the fact that Eleazar could now assist the Volturi in recruiting only the most uniquely gifted vampires to join the coven. He travelled all over the world at the request of the Volturi leaders, scouting vampires that may prove useful additions. It was on one of these scouting missions that he encountered Carmen, and the two quickly fell for each other, becoming mates. Although not technically a part of the Volturi, Carmen's attachment to Eleazar meant she went where he went, and although Eleazar's scouting gifts were heavily used, he was still a member of the Volturi Guard, and therefore was tasked with the enforcement of Volturi law. This of course meant violence, as the Volturi had a no-tolerance policy to law breaking. Basically, Eleazar had to execute people, which conflicted with his calm personality. It also greatly upset Carmen to be involved with such a level of violence due to her living with him in Volterra. Eleazar also began to see a more vindictive side of Arrow, believing that he, Caius and Marcus were using their power of upholding the law as a cover for the coven's gain in strength. This soured his view on the three vampires he had once highly respected. He made the decision to walk away from a life of violence and approached the Volturi leaders to ask for their blessing. Believing that Eleazar's gift of identifying powerful vampires wouldn't be missed due to the coven having other means of identifying vampires' abilities, Arrow surprisingly wished him well, with the agreement that Eleazar would return to him should he ever call on his services. And Arrow did cite Carmen as the reason for Eleazar's departure, but did not hold her accountable. During the event of Breaking Dawn, Arrow was highly surprised and also disappointed to see Eleazar stand against him in support of the Cullens. This further confirmed, in Arrow's mind, the influential power the Cullens had over other vampires. So guys, Carlisle, Eleazar and Carmen are the only vampires to ever escape the Volturi without consequence. I wish I could give you a bigger list, but not many people have lived to tell the tale. Anyway guys, thank you so much for watching. Make sure to check out my other videos on the channel, and as I mentioned earlier, if you want to check out Carlisle's departure from the Volturi in more detail, then click the card on the screen. I'll chat to you all very soon.